Share is its own character credit in its share.
Okay, guys. Welcome to this week's Open Tabs conversation. And as always, I think we just cut to the chase. Okay, so cool platform update that I want to discuss with you guys. TikTok announced that they're rolling out shared feeds and shared collections. So they'll be making it easier to consume content on the platform with your friends. So something that's interesting, this seems to be a ripoff of features that are already on Instagram, which is an interesting, like, how the tables turn moment. So shared collections, it's like shared folders, shared files where you can like organize and add videos with your friends. And then I think the most interesting feature is the shared feeds where TikTok will merge your algorithm with your friends and create a custom For You page that the two of you can consume together and to be tailored to both of your tastes. So I would love like initial thoughts from you guys on this.
So as someone who uses TikTok a lot, I personally don't care to see my friends' For You pages or kind of like what they're consuming. I feel like we have our DMs and that's good. Like I don't need more interaction with it. And I feel like it kind of undermines what makes the FYP so great is that it is so personal that I almost am like, is this really like a good use case of like merging it with somebody else's? Because then it gets kind of performative. Even like with Spotify last week, you saw a lot of people talking about like the performative things that they do in order to make their Spotify Wrapped as cool as possible.
Mhm.
And I worry that if you're performing your algorithmic consumption for your friends, that might fundamentally change how you interact with TikTok for the worse, you know?
I was gonna say too, like, I feel like it feels so meta to try to think through how this works and why and like what's the payoff and like what I think it's worth experimenting with to try to see like what happens with it. But I feel like it's kind of crazy to sort of like play like if the goal is to, let's say, like create higher quality direct messaging or sharing among a group of people. I feel like, at least for me personally with Instagram, let's say as an example, the things that come up in my For You page are like, and then that I bring to the group are my like, it's like little value adds that I contribute to the conversation. So this idea of like, if my closest friends were seeing the same stuff, it almost like just undermines this fun like meme sharing that we're doing, right? Like I'm seeing things coming up that are very different than everyone else and, whatnot. So I'm curious to see, one, how the experiment plays out, and two, like I'm also curious like what their end goal is or their vision is for it, you know?
Yeah. I would imagine that they're trying to make the platform more social because, we've talked a lot about like people wanting the social back in social media, but I just don't know if this is the best path forward for that.
Yeah, I also think this is them trying to like keep people on their app. So it's like, oh, you don't have to go to your iMessage to send or like, to send your friend a TikTok now. And makes me think of like this report we covered in Substack in November where um my favorite insight from it was that WhatsApp was people's the number one like top favorite social air quotes platform. Um, so I think this is like TikTok trying to get in on that like direct message action. And about this, like my favorite commentary was that For You pages are so personal and it feels like it's tapped into your brain. And I don't want to share that. I don't want to share my brain that intimately with one of my friends.
Yeah.
I just have a question about the functionality. Like, is this something that like anyone can opt in to do? Like, for example, like as a TikTok user, could I say, "Hey, Megan, let's share a For You page, or is this like, how does it work?
So you both have to be following each other, I think, is the only like criteria to creating a For You page. But I wonder if it's going to be like you're limited to like, I feel it's like how many custom For You pages can you have?
Yeah.
Like,
And also, where will they live? Because I know in Instagram, when you do it, you basically have to create the real blend in your direct messages. And I did it with like individuals, but you can also do like a three-way. So like we could all three do one for all three of us. But then it kind of says like for each person, for each video, who is the reason why it's being shown to you. So then it kind of defeats the purpose. It just kind of felt like it was just like, okay, so you're just kind of seeing like your For You page and your For You page and your For You page. Then it didn't really feel like it was like net new. It felt like it was just showing you the middle of the Venn diagram. And like Melissa said, it's like, well, we're showing each other that. And that's like how we hang out and bond. So like you doing that is just cutting into our friendship dynamic more than it is helping, you know?
Megan, do you know when Instagram Blends feature launched? Because
No,
I didn't know it was a thing until
I think it was probably a beta test that I was part of because I didn't see a lot about it either. And like, only some of my friends had it, not all of them had it. I'll look back and get you an exact date and we can like go do some research and digging. But I also got the beta for the shared boards on TikTok, which like I use the TikTok boards so much, like saving things, organizing things, like public, private. I share them in my newsletter when like we create a collection. Right now I'm collecting all of the Pinterest predicts feedback. So I'll send that to you guys. But so Kaylee and I were testing that and it was really annoying because every time I saved something to the board, it would send her a DM saying, Megan, save this to the board. But like we also had DMs happening. So she was like logged in at some point and was like, had like 57 DMs from me and like was like, whoa, Megan went crazy. But it's like, no, there's only
But you weren't. You were
yeah.
just, yeah.
Yeah. So I think they're still working some of this stuff out. And I think that they have their end goals in mind, but they're not really thinking about the user experience.
Yeah. I mean, I'm still gonna, like, rest in peace, like Instagram guides. I feel like that
Yeah.
feature was really like had so much potential. We loved it. I feel like this idea, like one thing we talk about with a lot of our clients too, I feel like is a good baseline is just this idea of like, especially for like very large brands, when we're in this era right now of like cultivating high quality experiences for micro communities is just, I think, thinking of your platforms as tools and resources, right? And like again, like I keep hearing like social is search and whatnot. And so if I were running a platform right now, I would be thinking really strategically about creating tools and products to lend itself for that, right? For the user journey, for the user experience. And again, as time goes on and you're building sort of things, how do you make it easier for the consumers to go back to them and resurface them?
And another
Again, also in this age of nostalgia that we keep going back to 2012. Anyway, sorry, go ahead, Megan.
I was going to say another thing to that end is that I think a lot of times too at the platforms, we get so caught up in the things that we can measure because there's so many metrics available to us in terms of like what was posted, what was shared, what was liked, what was commented upon, that sometimes you lose the experience that's more like in person and like the things that people are doing that maybe isn't getting calculated into the data of like their user experience. So I think thinking about that journey as well and making sure that there's like, in addition to the on-platform data, that there's a lot of like focus groups where it's like you're putting the app in someone's hand and being like, show me how you use this and making sure that you're like intimately familiar with the pain points that are there because they're not going to show up in the metrics.
Totally. How do they make people's lives better?
Yeah.
How do you make people's lives better? That's like really like, yeah.
I love that you brought up Instagram guides. I feel like Instagram guides was killed off too early, especially now that like Instagram is like social SEO, like you mentioned, and like Instagram now shows up in search results. I feel like guides would be perfect for that.
It would have been the beginnings of our individual AIs where it's like what would your individual like brand be? What would you say? There was so much writing there and like I also think for me, that was the beginning of my no longer caring to invest in Instagram as a platform and like Instagram as a space. I know you guys are big on own platforms, so I'm sure that you do. But I was just like, I lost trust. It's like you guys keep debuting things and getting rid of them. And I view this as like my time capsule for my life. But if you're going to just like wipe out parts of my life, like I'm not going to build a brand here, you know?
I completely agree. I mean, I even feel like there could have been a way to keep the content from guides in an archive of sorts. There was, I mean, again, empty deco for sure, but a handful of our clients, like we leaned in hard. Like we did a lot of curation. We did like various recommended lists for like, location, travel, like, top restaurants, like all this stuff. And it all just like went away. Like
Yeah.
it just disappeared. It was like, it could have been blog content, honestly. Um, now that you mention it, Megan, yes, that is probably like the best example of why we always say owned platforms that you own that are not rented because anything can happen at any time. But yeah.
Oh, RIP Instagram guides. But another cool platform feature coming to Substack that was announced today is their like sponsored content. So they dropped this in Feed Me, which is one of the most popular publications on this platform. And I feel like we were talking about this earlier. I feel like they're really Substack, the platform is like very invested in that publication. And it's become a place for them to like drop updates and like do interviews with like the CEO and executives, which is interesting. But it seems like Substack will be like liaising sponsors and creators. Is that the read you guys got to?
I have not gone deep enough into this, I guess. I feel like is
Well,
my
it's very like there isn't a lot out there from what
right. I mean, I think this moment of anytime a platform does sort of make this move to sponsored content, right? It always feels like this like before and after moment. It is a bridge we have now crossed. So it opens up this opportunity for advertising and this whole other sort of realm that I feel like is there's a whole mechanism tied to that, right? So I think it's interesting, like that they are doing it. I think that, you know, I don't know enough data also on how many people who are creators on Substack or have already been getting sponsored content or doing sponsored deals on their own. Um, I think if the goal is to make it easier and better for creators, more money and incentivization to be on the platform, which is probably what this is all sort of tied to, then I think, of course, it makes sense. Of course, you want it to be in the spirit of helping the people who are creating on this platform. I still wish that I was hearing more about this idea that's like Substack wanting to help newer creators who are on the platform. Like that's still like a story that I'm just craving from this platform in particular. Like why I love Substack, why many people love Substack is just this idea, of course, that like there's a monetization model at the outset. So when you spend time on here, hopefully it will lead to getting paid for the work that you do. And I think that is a huge part of why people love it, blah, 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 blah. But again, I still think that there's this like inherent problem of famous people or people who have audiences coming on here and sort of like sucking all the money out of the room. And like, I would just love if there was a way that Substack really like catered to like the smallest, the people who are coming on here and who are brand new and aren't bringing audiences. That's like sort of where I still stand on it. I know this is all over the place, but yeah, I don't know. Megan, do you have any sort of reaction? What do you think?
Yeah. I think from like a wanting to do cool things perspective in corporate, you always run into legal and like legal's never going to allow that. And so that's immediately where my head goes with this because it's like you're getting into tricky territory with like advertising. And there's a lot of rules around advertising and what you're allowed to do and what you're allowed to say and what you're allowed to not say and how those payments have to be paid out. And so I'm interested like how much Substack has actually thought about that and like how much of it is like going to be on the up and up, and like even thinking about like plagiarism or like quoting people, like those types of things. And like, I don't know. I think that brands might be more hesitant to go full in on Substack advertising than they think, just because there's so much liability when you're tapping creators. Like there's that already exists on YouTube, but YouTube has laid the groundwork to kind of separate like the brand from the creator and their message and their opinion, that I feel like Substack is such an opinion-based platform that I'm like, is this the right place for like branded advertising, you know?
Interesting. I hadn't even thought of that. I mean, I know they're doing like a beta with a small cohort of publications. And then I think sometime in early 2026, we'll be like rolling it out to more people. I'm gonna like be paying attention to this and keeping an eye out to see if like, other than Feed Me, if any of the like publications I'm currently reading start like sponsorships.
Yeah. And how will we see that there's sponsorship? Like, remember that was a whole thing back in the Instagram days where you didn't used to have to disclose that Instagram sponsorship was what you were supposed to, but the laws had not yet caught up to the technology. And so then there was a time where like the Kardashians had to pay a ton of fees because they had done all of this like
flat tummy tea.
Exactly. So it's like, it's Substack kind of, are they thinking about these things? Are creators thinking about these things? Or are they just kind of like, this is what's next, and not really thinking about, is that really the right fit for the type of content that exists on our platform, you know?
Mm. Interesting. Okay.
I'm sure they just have to think about like, how do you create highways for more money to come in, right? Like, I think that that's kind of what it comes down to. It's like, how do you set this up so that like it's clear that like more money can roll in? And it is an exciting thing to say at the end of the year as you look ahead to 2026 and you are like setting budgets and you're like, oh, like I can put money toward Substack. You know, like I can see all that from like the B2B side of all of it. Also more of an incentive for creators, so like they know that Substack wants to help them make money, and like this is another avenue in which to do it. But yeah, to your point, Megan and Emma, like it'll be interesting to see like where it goes and then how it can affect sort of the like, you know, startup nature of the platform too.
Yeah, and I feel like Substack has been like an oasis for people. Like we're being sold to so much everywhere else we go. So I'm interested to see like what the like user sentiment is once this like starts rolling out like 100%. Okay, speaking of a brand move that didn't go so well this week. Pantone's color of the year is white. I'm sorry, Cloud Dancer, actually. So they've been doing these color of the year predictions since 1999, which is interesting. So this is their 26th year, and they're predicting that Cloud Dancer, white, is going to be the color of 2026. And influence art and fashion and travel. And I wanted us to talk about this because one of my favorite YouTube videos is from Curtis Connor, and it's "Why is everything so boring now?" And it's back to like cars and houses and advertising and how color has been leached from so much of our everyday life. Our cars used to be like pink and yellow and like pastel blue, and now everything's kind of like millennial gray, cloud dancer, black. And I love that video, and this made me think of that. Looked back, and for the past 3 years, Pantone's colors of the year have all been different shades of beige. So Megan, I first want to get like your take as somebody who works in the trend space. Like, what did you think of this?
I thought it was lacking vision. So I think that, and this is something that we're seeing a lot in the insights and trend space in terms of like predictions. I think because we have so much data available, it's easy to make boring predictions because they're accurate. But then it's like, Yeah, obviously. Like another trend we saw recently was quarter zips being a trend. And then like the quarter zip trend, that's happening. It's like, this isn't a trend. It got cold outside. People put on jackets. This year, they just so happened to really gravitate towards quarter zips. This is not a phenomenon that we need to be writing home about. But in our current landscape where we're having AI pick up on trends, that feels notable because there's a huge spike in search for quarter zip and conversation that it seems like this is some big, huge phenomenon that it just simply isn't. But people like to see the metrics and they like to have the metrics validate. And so I think there will probably be a lot of stuff that's white next year that comes in this color. But will it be the color of the year that we look back on to define 2026? No. And I think it's similar to what I wrote this summer about this summer having divorced dad energy. It's like we're not going to look back on this summer and remember The Ordinary Song by Alex Warren. Like, even though that was the most popular song, that is not going to be what defines 2025. We're going to remember Sabrina Carpenter. We're going to remember Role Model doing the Sally dance. We're going to remember the actually interesting new things that happened. And so I think this to me represents Pantone playing it safe because, and that probably internally, there is not a clear vision for what the company is, who it's for, who they're serving, because they're trying too hard to just please everybody and play it safe. And then they please no one.
You know what? Okay, so I love your take, Megan, as per usual. But I was actually going to say, I have like a little bit of a different viewpoint on this. I actually think that in the Pantone meetings, they were like, imagine if we picked white. And like it's like safe controversy. Like, I actually think that they knew it was going to be controversial and that they did it like it was both what you are saying, but they also knew it was going to get news. Like, I think that. And it kind of reminds me of like, because you mentioned, it's funny you mentioned Sabrina Carpenter, because you and I have talked about this before, where I have said in the past where it's like, there's like, I feel like these PR stories that come up about her, like, even outside of her music, it has nothing to do with their music, where it's like there's such this like tension with like whatever. And it's like, they're like made up stories that I don't feel like are real. It's the same thing with like all the Sydney Sweeney stuff. Like, I'm like, someone is like orchestrating controversy, but it's like not real. It's like bland fodder for the internet to talk about. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And so I feel like this situation is like that. Like, it's like something that is a safe take, but is going to stir up pointless conversation.
Yeah.
Mhm. I
Right.
mean, Oxford Dictionary's word of the year was rage bait. So I so you're saying they might have rage baited us, which in our Monday Cultural Gems email, one of the article, and it's been a few days since I read it, but one of the articles I highlighted was about brands purposely doing like kind of low stakes rage bait in order to farm engagement and like clicks and conversation online.
That is the title of this open tabs. Wait, did you say like farming low key
Yeah, and
rage
it
bait?
reminds me, I don't know if you guys are watching I Love LA on.
No, it's on my to-do list. It's on my to-do list.
It's so,
My For You page has said that I should see it.
and you have to like kind of invest in the show. Like, I didn't like the pilot that much, but I was like, I'm gonna push through. And now that we're in like episode 4, it's hit its stride and it's good. But it's about the LA influencer scene. And one of the characters who is an influencer has an engagement farm where she has like a setup of like a wall of iPhones, and like bots are just liking and commenting and engaging on her content. And like,
Oh my God. I have to watch. Oh my God.
it's so good. And I mean, even I have Pantone's Instagram pulled up in front of me, which after this like controversy, they paused posting for a few days.
As one does when one follows the faux controversy playbook. Yeah.
They paused for a few days, but the average Pantone post they have some spikes, but it's like 10K likes. their color of the year announcement and like a couple hundred, not even, like maybe 150 comments. That's their typical engagement. Their color of the year announcement has 81,000 likes and over 2,400 comments.
Yeah. You know what? I say good job, Pantone. Like way to create some drama in like the safest way possible and farm some rage bait. Like I like it.
And I'm thinking like about their past colors and like this like beige neutral color palette they have going. Surprised if like in a week they announced a partnership with Skims on like a new line of neutral cloud dancer.
Oh my God. You know how much I love the Skims like marketing team. Like those guys, they will always have my heart when they got the the prostitutes from White Lotus to do their Valentine's collection that year. It was like the year that they did like the Italy White Lotus. It was like, oh my gosh. I was like, you guys are geniuses. Like how fast they did that. Like, yeah. Anyways.
So safe. Pantone kept it safe. And I mean, so next year they will be able to say our prediction for look how many white things came out. So
Safe and spicy. Safe and spicy.
our prediction was spot on for 2026. I am curious that like we have to wait a whole other year, but like if they just keep up this like boring, I feel like it would be fun if they came out with like neon orange for 2027, but we'll have to see how things what is by then.
You know what, Megan? Emma, I think coming out of this call, can you reach out to their team and like let's see if they'll do a Q&A with us on like how they do it.
You got it.
I think it'd be really fun.
Okay. So this is kind of like our last topic of the day, and it's more of a fun one. So talking about like personal For You pages, my For You page has been taken over by Millennial Optimism. So this is Gen Zers. A lot of them. So for context, I am technically a Gen Zer, but I am the oldest Gen Z. So I consider myself as a millennial because I was around for a lot of the like 2015 moments there.
When you were when you were 10? Just kidding.
That was my freshman year of college. It's like so funny to see. Yeah. But so Millennial Optimism. A lot of Gen Zers are romanticizing a time pre-smartphone. I feel like this is like maybe there was like an early edition of the iPhone. Yeah, there was an early edition of the iPhone out at this time, but it was, like very basic compared to what the high schoolers are running around with today.
And not everyone had one. It was not like today where like literally everyone has an iPhone. It was like you maybe had one friend who had an iPhone.
Yeah. And I do want to bookmark that because that has been on my mind lately. So they're specifically going viral with like these throwbacks of BuzzFeed employees in like 2012, a lot of Tumblr, a lot of like early Pinterest. I'm even seeing like mustaches and fedoras and to the song Blood by the Middle East. So that's like a song, if you heard it, you would know it, but by the name, you don't. But I just think it's like so interesting. Like the last one I saw was like, oh, to be like 23 years old, living in Brooklyn with my best friend. I work at BuzzFeed writing listicles. And then I go out to dance and there's not a smartphone in sight. So as millennials, like, what do you guys think of this?
Melissa?
Oh my gosh, I have so much to say. Okay, one, let me bring you guys back. Okay, 2015, that was the year I turned 30. So I was like right in the middle of this, okay? For my 30th birthday, I went with a handful of my best friends to Las Vegas. We stayed at Caesars and we saw Britney Spears in her residency there. It was amazing. I will say, like, I think it's so funny. I'm actually gonna like reference Tinks a bunch in this because I think Tinks does a really great job of sort of like lecturing to Gen Z from the perspective of a millennial who like rose through this time. And I think that like one of the big differences, okay, so one, I will say, I feel like everyone had smartphones, at least in my age range. Like, I think you guys were a little younger at this time. So, like, it might not have been as like ubiquitous, but like my first Instagram posts were from like a couple of years before that. Like,
Me too.
also in Las Vegas, which is weird because I don't go there that often. Um, but we like in our 20s, we worked really hard and we partied really hard. And like that idea of FOMO and whatnot was so real. Like I went through a couple years that I'm not proud of, but like I would go to One Oak on Sunday night and I would be out all like until like the early hours of the morning, and then I would come home, shower, change, and then go to work at NBC. Like I had a really hard serious job. And like all through my 20s too, I had this like again, it's like the millennial like propensity to like always achieve and like go for, nothing is ever enough, right? And so I remember there was this time I was 23 and I was like, well, I'm not going to get promoted too quickly, so I think I'll just run a marathon now. I'm going to check that box. And so I like trained and ran the Disney marathon. And then I was like, my friend Candy had gotten into the Columbia Graduate School of Journalism, and she and I had both been NBC pages. And she got into to Columbia, and I was like, "How did you get in? One, like, are you doing it part time? And like, did you get NBC to pay for it?" And she said yes and yes, and I was like, "Oh my gosh!" So I was like, "I'm going to go to Columbia now." And so I, did the test, got in, and whatnot. And so there was this like period of time for 2 years where I was like working full time and going to school for 2 years, doing my master's degree and everything. And I don't know, again, like sometimes my mom says it's just because it's me and I'm like really type A, but it was like everyone around us was like that, right? Like just pushing, pushing, pushing. And will I say, like, do I think it's healthy? No. Like, do I think that was like, yes, there are elements of it that were great, right? But I do think that like millennials are just more coded to like push yourselves to the brink. And whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, but in New York at that time, if you worked at like BuzzFeed, NBC, CNN, like all these places, that's what you did. Like it was a point of pride to be like, I went out really late. I also worked out. I look really good and I have this job and I'm all these things.
Yeah. I will say, I think part of that is very New York coded, like the go, 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 like, over on the West Coast, we were like perfecting our Instagrams and taking pictures of the Paul Smith wall and like in line at Earth Cafe, like still trying to like convey, I'm living my young life, but I think just different codes and cues of how that was conveyed. But in general, I think that Gen Z's obsession with this time is just like nostalgia. But, I hate nostalgia. I always am like, nostalgia is like the laziest marketing. I'm always like quoting John Draper, like, nostalgia, it's a potent emotion, like easiest low hanging fruit, right? But if you are going to do
Oh,
nostalgia,
I
you have
love
to do it
that. I
right.
love that, Megan. I just want to like bookmark that comment. Okay, sorry, keep going.
Yeah, but if you are going to do nostalgia right, you have to, it means something different to everyone, which is part of why I hate it. Because if you're in a meeting with people and you've got Gen Zs, you've got Gen Xers, you've got a boomer, you've got millennials, and you say nostalgia, everybody thinks of something different. And what Gen Z thinks of when they think of nostalgia is their childhoods, which are the early 2000s and like the beginning of the smartphone era. And the period you're talking about is when they started to envision themselves in their adult lives. And so it's kind of like them envision like what they were thinking their lives were going to be like when they were like those right ages. They thought they were going to be BuzzFeed millennials, like taking pictures of the pink wall and all of
So
that.
cute.
But that is not what ended up happening. It's like
Yeah.
just when I was younger, like I watched Gossip Girl and I watched like Sex and the City and The Devil Wears Prada. And I was like, that's what my life is going to be like. So I think it's less about like they want to be millennials and more of like, they are like, what happened to the future that I was promised?
Mm.
And
Oh.
what is this?
Mhm.
And then also, let's not forget that that was the time of the millennial lifestyle subsidy, where like you're getting all of these like bougie services at discounted rates, like Netflix and like Uber and like all of these things that they were like essentially paying us to try at like ridiculous prices that made it like seem like we're just like Movie Pass. When Movie Pass was happening, I was like, guys, we're like stealing. This is amazing. We have to do this and go as much as we can. So I think there is like some things that Gen Z misses, but it's from this place of they were aspiring to this life when it was happening, you know?
I totally agree. I was thinking it's like the older sister, like cool older cousin effect. Like
Exactly.
that's the life
Yeah.
they saw their cool older sister, like their cool older cousin
Yeah.
living that they wanted to emulate.
Yes. And when you think about it, normally when that relationship is confined to like people you actually know and people who are in your community, in your family, like you wouldn't see what like random people are doing across the world. Whereas now, thanks to the internet and
Right.
growing up, you see all of that. And then also, I think that for Gen Z, because so much of the content they consume is like about real life, it's either based on real life or it's just straight up someone's real life. They have more of a instructional relationship to content, whereas I feel like older generations see it as more of like escapist and it's a story and like there's plot holes, don't question it too much. Gen Z is so like, but what about this? And this person's a bad person. It's like, yeah, they're a bad person. They're the villain in the story. You're watching a movie. Like this isn't a morality play. It's a tale. Like watch the movie
Yeah.
and enjoy the entertainment. So I think that also plays into that a lot, where it's like they're expecting their life to be like they saw it in the movies, thinking that it actually was like that for some people because they want their reality to be reflected in their current entertainment more so than we did in the past.
I love that. And I know we've been talking for a while. One last thing, Megan, you talked about not everyone had iPhones yet.
Yeah.
One thing that I've been nostalgic for in like the past month is the time when everyone had different phones and like what that said about you and like your personality. I'm like, I've been rewatching like Gossip Girl and Pretty Little Liars. And it was like everyone had a different like brand. Somebody had an LG, like
Yep.
somebody had BlackBerry, somebody had a Samsung. And it was so, and again, like my powder pink Motorola Razor. Like I know you can get a pink iPhone now, but it's not the same.
Also, another important part of community creation is exclusion, which is part of why people prefer group chats over the For You page because it feels like this is confined. It's like exclusive to these people. And the thing about everyone getting iPhones, it was like the cool kids had iPhones, the young people had iPhones. Once everybody got them, that kind of changes the aperture for like what the landscape looks like, you know? So when these when these communities are smaller is actually when they're like more cool and interesting.
I have so many thoughts on that. I was just in the Apple store the other day. I had lost my computer charger. Could not find it. I know it's in my house somewhere and it's definitely in an annoying spot, like under my couch. And 5 days went by and like I'm like desperate. I have to get a charger. Um, I'm so disappointed in Apple. Like I'm just like, what are they doing? Like nothing feels innovative in there. I went in and I bought the charger. It was $50 for a charger. Like, I'm sorry. Like that is ridiculous. Also, my cell phone, which you can't see because I'm talking to it, the entire case is like disintegrated. And again, like the material is definitely made to do that. Like my phone is not like I don't drop kick my phone everywhere. Like it's falling apart. It's definitely been made to do that. To buy a new case, it was ridiculous. I got a new screen protector again, like $60 or something. Ridiculous. Like I just like again, we're all like, hooked on Apple products or whatever, but you want to talk about like a Pantone, nobody's doing anything cool, like state of mind. Like Apple, like I mean, again, love them, but I don't know what they're thinking. Like literally, I don't know. Like, and it goes to, like what you're talking about, Emma, like this idea of like individuality of like, I don't know, I would love to see that sort of disrupted. Oh, and speaking of fun news, by the way, which I did not like suggest for today's open tabs, but one fun piece of news that you guys know I will be happy about is Australia has completely banned social media for kids ages 16 and under. Not on every single app, Like it's like Facebook, Instagram, whatnot. And I think that is awesome. I think that is like a great call. It'll be interesting to see like how that turns out. I would love if they did that in the United States. I'm sure they won't. But I just think that this idea of like, I don't know, it's all in the same theme of like protecting, like making things a higher quality experience, like all of that is, I don't know. Hopefully that's what we're moving toward with a nice, clean, white slate for 2026.
Love it.
Me too. That's a good note to end on some good news. Well, thank you guys so much. I always envision these conversations. I'm like, oh, we'll be on for like 30 minutes tops, but there's so much to talk about. So
I
many.
know. And we didn't even do our pre-call, which was
I know.
all about cakes. Okay, anyway.
Well, thank you guys so much. Thank you guys for joining us for these like off the cuff conversations. And as always, we'll be posting this to Substack, so you can be on demand at your leisure. Thank you guys so much.
Talk to you later.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.